Well, hello and welcome to Escaping Dystopia. I'm your host, War. It's episode 84, September 5th, 2019. The Contenders and Enablers. First up, Spaceship Earth is burning. Burning, the whole planet's burning, from the Amazon to Alaska to Siberia. The whole planet is burning. James Mattis wrote a book. It's a book about leadership. The China trade war continues. Tariffs went up September 1st. Talks are scheduled for next month. Probably nothing will happen. Many Democrats quit the race. One of them suggested, briefly, we all use telekinesis to push the hurricane back into the ocean away from Alabama. Hurricane Dorian destroyed the Bahamas. And 40 white supremacist terrorists were arrested as law enforcement begins to actually read the internet and hold people accountable for that bullshit! Alright, let's get to the news. Alright, sorry. So, what can I say? I don't know what to say here. Let's go back to the top, shall we? No? Can I do that? So what's I got some upgraded technology here. Boop. There we go. Now I can see if you comment. Including, and I'm not even joking about this, a teleprompter. I have a teleprompter now. That's how I was able to read all that stuff, and I can actually look at you. Now I'm reading the teleprompter. Now I'm looking at you. Now I'm reading the teleprompter. It's actually kind of neat. I'm using anyway. I think I got a little microphone. I don't know if that's working better. But anyway, welcome to the show. Episode 84, September 5th, 2019. I think I may have skipped over that in my desire to begin the show. So that's how we're going to do it now. I think we're going to do the first, real news segment in costume. And then we'll talk about stuff like for realsies. Like regular. So, James Mattis wrote a book. We're going to cover that. Oh, no, Spaceship Earth burning. So, this planet that we're on, right, we've noticed already that us taking carbon out of the ground and putting it into the air increases the amount of carbon in the air, which increases the amount of heat that is trapped by our atmosphere. And so right now what's happening is from the Amazon, and there's always forest fires in the Amazon, but this year is particularly bad, and one of the reasons is some of this is actually intentional, it sounds like, so they're clearing some space for fires. And so that's going on. Alaska was already having some really bad fires. Russia, again, had bad enough fires that Trump offered to help them. Overall, so there's been a lot of fighting. Hold on. Have to see if we have to intervene. Anyway, so the whole world is largely on fire, and we have a president who doesn't quite understand what that would mean. The results of this and the effects of it, and this is one of the things why some of the models are so difficult, really, to put together, because as things change in ways that you can't really tell before, right? You can't predict. It's really hard to predict in a global climate model exactly how a forest fire is going to change things. Right, because it does take a lot of that capped carbon, immediately puts it into the air, and then allows that new growth to come up. So what comes back and what replaces it, and what the carbon changes from there to the beginning, right? And we have a lot of permafrost melting right now, and so I think we're going to continue to see a lot of strange and horrible effects from that. That's why it's top of the show every time. James Mattis has a book. I haven't read the book, and I need to spend a little bit more time to this. I saw a couple interviews with him that he's done. One with Christiane Amanpour on CNN, and it's really frustrating for folks who want him to be like, this guy's an idiot, doesn't know what he's doing, because everything that he's trying to do is kind of these oblique you know, criticisms, but not direct. And one of the things that came very clear in that interview with Amanpour, that what really mattered to him was funding for the military and the military funding, and that was very important, and rebuilding the military, which, again, for folks, and it was odd, and this is one of the things that I'd like to talk about, because one of the things that he was complaining about is people don't really talk about their values very much in media and in various places. But that's exactly what he was doing, and talking about his values as a military man and where his loyalties lie, which was to the military traditions. And in this situation specifically now we have where he has information that could be very good for the country, because we have, obviously, and I'll get to this a little bit later, a leader who's very disconnected from the way that reality works. And you have somebody who's in possession of information that could actually help bring things back around. This was one of the adults in the room. And it sounds like none of these guys are going to actually speak up until after the election next year. John Kelly is in the same boat. These were all his generals, right? That's one of the things that we've been seeing lately, is this total meltdown. Is because, again, all those adults in the room are gone. And apparently he's not a big fan of John Bolton now either, who is supposed to be the new genius coming in to fix things. Yeah, and so none of these people are going to save us. They're not going to come back. They're not going to even speak. They wouldn't, I mean, they're all patting themselves on the back. Paul Ryan still was patting himself on the back for stopping some of the horrible ideas. Which, again, after he was gone, what did you do? You delayed this. You're not helping us. You're not helping us solve the problem, because, again, you're all getting something out of it. The tax cuts, or in the case of Mattis, he's got his board seat and various other ways. I think that's, and I know it's a harsh criticism, right, for somebody who spends their whole life doing this stuff, to, of course, you get that money on the back end, but that's what your pension is, right? I mean, it's not, a board seat isn't something that's guaranteed to every general, I hope. That's a really, 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 really fucked up situation, and we've come a long way from these Marine Corps generals coming out and being like, this whole thing's a racket, which is what we had a while back. Before, I guess, realized that there was some good money in it. Man, that's tough to watch. The China trade war update. So, there was the G7 a couple weeks ago. President kind of made an idiot of himself, as per, right? It's the G7. It's Trump. I talked about this for a long time on my show, from the beginning on my show. You guys ever heard of my show, by the way, whoever's out there? Hello, welcome! But this is one of the things that I've always had, that theory going on, that there's the goal here is a complete rewrite, right, of the global order, right? To move away from this Western civilization where we're all allies because of our values, and move to this ethno-nationalist, religious-based thing where we in Russia are, white Christian nations, right? Right. And it's like that part of that move came up a lot in the G7. And doing that kind of attacks on those institutions is a big part of that just kind of general theme. And that's why I keep talking about this. I don't even know if Trump knows that that's what he's doing. And that's the thing. I definitely fall on the useful idiot line as far as how much influence Putin has over him. I don't think he could be trusted as a direct agent. But so during the G7, he lied about these calls that he got from China. And it's, again, one of those lies that was a big deal because it was kind of made news, changed the stock market, comes back, Mnuchin lies about it too, says there's these talks. China comes out and is like, we don't have any talks planned. So this is what's so strange about the news and reality in life. Things change, right? So now, as of today, there are talks planned for October. China is starting to feel a little bit of pressure. Trump's starting to feel a lot of pressure. I personally, again, I've said this over and over again, I think he's going to give in definitely sometime before next summer and pat himself wildly on the back for doing so and claim all sorts of gains. He won't have gotten really much, and analysis I think will show that. Because I don't think China is at a point now where this is their big, you had in 2008 when they had the Olympics and they were on the world stage, and we're like, we're a world power now, by the way, check out this shit. And everyone was like, that's pretty awesome. You guys are pretty cool. How many people are that doing the exact same thing? It's a lot. So now they're a world power and they want to act like it. And so they're not going to be bullied around. And that's the only way that Trump really knows how to do business, at least publicly. I'm sure, from what I understand, he's very fawning and whatever in private. But now I don't think there's any method to his madness. There is just madness. Which is where they're like, yeah, sure, we'll talk again, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I think you're going to have some pretty hardcore moves in the market. The yield curve is still inverted and has been for a while, so we're not going to see that. So the Yang discussion, Democratic winnowing. So Democratic debate primary. Obviously, you can't have 20 candidates the whole time, right? So I'm fine with this kind of winnowing process where if people don't have enough like actual support or whatnot, that they don't make the debate stage. And I'm glad they did this climate debate. I don't again have cable. I don't know if that's news to anybody watching, but I don't pay people to produce content and argue all day long. I read pretty much all of my news, and I watch some clips, but I don't. I can read a lot faster than I can watch people talk, so it saves me time to be able to just read stories. But somebody had asked, and hopefully, Case, when you get a chance to check this out later, you'll see this. I know I can't get the time right, and I said I was going to do this yesterday, but whatevs. I've got 3 kids, man. Just schedules don't always work out, and I got to go play softball last night. We did lose badly, but once you get to a certain point in life, just playing is being able to, that's the good stuff. So anyway, he had a question about Andrew Yang, about his prospects just as a candidate generally. For a lot of these guys, especially these kind of celebrity candidates, my personal feelings are, run for a House seat, run for a Senate seat if you're feeling particularly, feisty. I know it's California, and running for a Senate seat in California is like billionaire territory, but then do a House seat. And that's the thing, Marianne Williamson, we'll talk about her in a second, she tried to run for a House seat and she lost. They have the guerrilla primary, whatever, in California. She got like 4th, did not do well. But that's what I would say for Yang. And he seems like a nice guy. The Universal Basic Income, the UBI, I've talked about this before. This is something that I definitely think we should be looking at in a society that's mostly run by robots in the form of AIs and APIs. That's what runs so much of this world. I don't know that people quite have figured this out yet, but between AIs and APIs, that's pretty much how shit works. And that's happened, and it's 2020, and so we're going to see something. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but in 2020 has always been like the big singularity year, right? Like that was like the idea that was the year that we were going to cross over and have. And this has been predicted for, I've been talking about this for 20 fucking years that this was happening. By the way, 2030, the big thing is Apophis, so get ready for that. But for 2020, having like functional AIs, like that you can't tell. And this has always been the Turing test, or that if you can tell if an AI is human or not. And we interact with lots of them all the time, and they're starting to get, and I think everybody's starting to see that they're working at the edges and nibbling at the edges of this very, very well. And especially in the business world, a lot of the decision making and stuff like that, there's a lot of it, and you'd be surprised. You might not be surprised. Anybody who's interacted with social media knows the degree to which automated intelligence systems are running things and deciding which things are run, which was a lot of this. But anyway, that was quite the tangent on UBI. But we are in the 21st century, folks. Tangents to be expected. I don't think just being a rich tech guy is a qualification to run for president, and that's, because there's a bunch of them, and some of them are just douchebags. So his background, I guess he was a corporate lawyer, and then he did like the test prep thing for business school test prep. So, I mean, it's kind of like just helping rich people get richer, which is fine. I don't really have a big problem with that. And then he started doing the better stuff, with doing the empower thing and getting, again, entrepreneurs. That's fine. But his policy record is one of those things, and again, for anybody who joined, I'm talking about Andrew Yang, is one of those things that doesn't exist, right? He's got a bunch of ideas and some things, and hey, we should just do this, and, I think that kind of common sense kind of thing is great and all, but I don't, to me, all that is someone who hasn't quite understood that you're not saying anything special at all. You're just saying it different than the people who do this professionally, right? I don't think that there's anything that Yang would say about this kind of stuff that Elizabeth Warren certainly hasn't heard before or isn't familiar with. So it's implementing these things, not just knowing of them or talking about them. That to me, again, this is me, and I'm a practical realist, pragmatic realist, so that being able to implement that is bigger than having the idea. And so I'm not big on these kind of idea candidates. But he does seem to have a very corporate approach to stuff, which I don't know if you quite get what that means, but that's what I get the feel off of him. Automatic voter registration, election day, a holiday, DC and Puerto Rico statehood. I'm all for all that kind of stuff. I like actually all those ideas. I really like the Puerto Rico and DC statehood. We need to sort those out one way or another. And I think statehood's a good way to go. Voting age being 16, I don't agree with that. I'm fine with 18. We'll stick with that. I liked his ideas on guns, licensing and registration. I think that's the way that we need to deal with this. There are 13 words at the beginning of the Second Amendment. Please read them. Marianne Williamson, oh my gosh. So I posted about this. She sent a tweet that if we could all just take those 2 minutes, it's 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, guys, concentrate on the storm. And I almost want to allow this to happen. I would love to see some of these kind of things done and studied at a mass level and say, even if everyone does it, does this do anything? Please? Can we settle this? She deleted the tweet and then just went straight for thoughts and prayers. She really needs to drop out. She didn't make the debates, these next round of debates. And it's apparent from the way that she's kind of talking and, that she's going for a niche thing. And again, she tried to run for a House seat and she got schnackered. I don't know that that's a qualification, again, to run for president. I don't get it. And the Steyer guy, like, okay, great, you're a billionaire, you want to fund candidates, great. You want to run for president? Why? We've got plenty of qualified candidates. And there are other ways that you can help. One of the best things that you can do as a billionaire is pay your damn taxes. Get the system to work. And there was that great guy who roasted Carlson, but didn't get on his show because he roasted him, which I'm pretty sure is why I would never make that far either. In pre-production, he roasted his ass. Anyway. But yeah, that's what, and that kind of sentiment is coming out there. Like, build this, you want to believe in the systems, you want the systems to exist, support them. Pay your taxes. Hurricane Dorian. The hurricane took a big turn up the coast. Talk about that other aspect of it in a second. Really, really hit the Bahamas. This one kind of come from, supposed to be a little small nothing, but nowadays, there's so much energy in the atmosphere. These things just go huge. You can see the way it turned, and if you look at the actual path it took, and then you look at the actual coastline of the eastern seaboard, you'll see that one of the things that I learned in my geology class, it was actually an interesting thing to learn in geology class, because in geology, you learn about stuff basically talking about things in million-year increments. And how, the earth has changed and all this, and mountains and valleys and all that. But one of the things that's striking about all that is that the thing that defines coastlines, it's not plate tectonics or this other things, it's hurricanes. Because when you talk about million-year increments and you see this plate moving a little bit or moving a few inches all this time, but then you see, excuse me, the amount of Earth, just flat-out Earth that these hurricanes can move, and then you talk about those happening year after year over these same patterns and carving out that space. Anyway. The Alabama line. Folks, I don't even know what to say about this. So I have no doubt, at some point there was a briefing where the words hurricane and Alabama were both mentioned to the president. But I do know that he spends a lot of time golfing and doesn't really pay attention much. So by the time he got around to letting people to be warned about the hurricane that had gotten intensified, he warned the wrong people and told people in Alabama to be careful. By that time, the official, path of projected hurricane places where it was going to go was not freaking Alabama. So, but the thing is, the president is so, I don't know, thin-skinned. He's got problems mentally on a certain level. And this is for posterity, because I'm sure everybody was aware of this already contemporaneously, but just for those in the future, this happened. The President of the United States held out this placard that had the path of the hurricane, and I think it was he, had drawn with a Sharpie. Like, I've got one right over here. Sharpie. Here, let me show you. No, really, I got one. Boom! Sharpie. He took and he drew on the map a little thing. Right? I don't know what we can do with this as a country, because this is he obviously has some mental issues. Like deep mental issues. We have a 25th Amendment that's supposed to be done for this. But there's an article the other day I saw that they've been really good about making sure that all the people who leave, and there's been a lot of people who leave, are very well taken care of. And so that you're only seeing a few of those tell-alls come out. But man, the Sharpie thing, wow. I mean, and a lot of people are like, apparently there is a federal law that says it's actually illegal to alter those and present them as fact. But again, the president actually in the United States is actually kind of allowed to just violate laws because he's supposed to enforce them. It's a weird flaw, in the system that actually is taken care of by other parts of the law of the system, but one of the new aspects that wasn't really mentioned much in the Constitution, but eventually was needed to actually run the country, which is these political parties, and this stuff has kind of broken it. So, what's he gonna do? As always, we do have advice for you. Vote coming up. We could still vote. This kind of stuff, and this is one of the things that I talk about too with my wife a lot, and just the family, and this kind of stuff, right? A lot of the politics that I talk about, a lot of these international politics stuff, and things, and these big stuff, they don't really affect day-to-day life every day. They really don't. And a lot of the things that these happen in these faraway places, they don't necessarily affect, directly life. And any feelings that you have are just becoming aware that this stuff is happening somewhere else. So even the way that they affect you internally is only the degree that you let these other things affect your life. Until it does. And that's the thing. And one of the things when you start flirting with recession and these trade wars and actual wars and this domestic terrorism that we're facing, they arrested 40 of these nutballs posting online about how they wanted to shoot up things and love these guys, and they go to all their places and they've got tons of guns and they've got notebooks and they're planning this shit, and there's lots of them, and they finally started going after these kids and these boys and these young men, because very few of them are actually people who have had any kind of success in life. How about that, huh? But anyway, oh man, I don't know what to do. But yeah, no, you keep going. I do know what to do. You just keep going, and we can still vote, and you want to keep it until it doesn't affect your life, right? And there's not this huge recession, and I don't have all my friends looking for work, and I'm not looking for work, trying to find a way to, pay the mortgage while we're and there's all these things, and it does eventually come around. There's this kind of philosophical question, and again, this is welcome to, if you're watching my show and you're not ready for some philosophy, back the fuck off. Anyway, the whole tree falls in the forest thing. I've always found these kind of questions a little bit silly, like the one hand clapping, or not one hand clapping, but just, does that tree fall in the forest? Does it make a sound? And that's the thing. Oh, sweet, that killed it. Of course it does. Of course the physics happen. All the energy transfers. These things happen, right? There is something now. There's a space for these beetles to grow. It couldn't have happened without that, without the forest that carved out this space, right? And so these things are real, and they have real effects, and they do come around, and they do affect us. And it's when they come, it's just that they don't come like raindrops. They come like tidal waves. And at that point, what you gonna do? Just surf it. Anyway, y'all have a great time. It's been a couple weeks. I liked actually doing it this way, and I like my teleprompter. We'll see. It's a little washed out with the white lights, so we'll have to figure out a way to do the lights right. But thank you again for anybody who dropped by, and whoever checks it out later. Peace out, y'all, and have a good week, or two, or whenever. Good night.